Well, we have certainly, APD has heard the concern about policy development. We understand from the monitoring team that that is the most critical concern right now. And so since the last monitoring report came out and since the last city council meeting, APD has really been looking hard at how to answer the questions that have been raised. Are the right people working on policy development? Do we need outside expertise? Those were a couple of the comments that were very directly raised by the council at their last meeting and also echo the concerns that have been in the monitor's report. So that's what APD's been looking at very, very hard for the last several weeks. And there have been, I think, 3 key things that have happened that I'll outline very quickly so that the councilors are aware of them. One is that I think there has been some clarification between APD and the monitoring team and DOJ about the use of model policies. During the negotiations, it was APD's understanding back in 2014 that they were not supposed to look at other policies, but were supposed to draft their own. And so that has now been clarified. And it's been made very clear now to APD that they should look at other policies. So now they feel more free to do that, and we have started to do that. So I think that's a huge step. The second thing that has happened is that we've brought in an outside consultant, because that was a big question. Are the right people in the room? And Councilor Davis, I think you said, someone could be an excellent police officer, but they might not be trained to write policy, and that's okay. So what we did is bring in someone on contract who can take the lead for us in this policy writing process, because as you've seen, the parties have come together to put together a schedule that has all the policies that need to be put in place by the end of May. And that's an important deadline in the settlement agreement that we want to keep. And so we want someone who can help us over the next few months to really get these policies where they need to be. So we've finalized a contract with former federal judge Lorenzo Garcia. Very, very respected jurist in New Mexico. He has been a judge for more than 30 years. First as a state court judge, then for 28 years on the federal bench. He is very well respected. In the past, he has served as constitutional counsel to the city of Albuquerque. He served as special counsel to the New Mexico House of Representatives. He's been recognized by the National Hispanic Bar Association for his commitment to the preservation of civil and constitutional rights for all Americans. He was honored by the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund with his Justice Award. He has received more awards than I could probably mention in this short time that we have. But during his time as a federal judge would have had many, many, many cases that deal with constitutional issues, policing issues, use of force, all of those issues that we are facing. And so we brought him on board, and he is going to be the one that is looking at all of these policies that are going through this process with the monitoring team and the Department of Justice over the next several months. He's already looked at about 8 of them, and we've started to receive feedback back from him. And one of the directives that APD has given him is look at what other departments are doing. Look at what national best practices are and what national standards are. Look at what APD has done in the past and how it needs to be added to. Don't just take the current policy and try to make it look better, but actually reach out, look at other departments and see what could be added to really make this the policy that it will best serve APD in the community going forward. So he has already started that work, and we are at such an early stage in this schedule that lays out the next 3 months worth of policy development that I think all but, there are 2 policies on this list that are currently with the monitor to have final resolution. On-body recording devices and promotional process. Those are the only 2 on this list that Judge Garcia will not have been directly involved in. All of the others on the list of 32, so 30 of the 32, he will have a hand in, whether it's on the very front end before we resubmit it to the parties, or looking at the feedback we've received from the parties and helping APD rewrite its policies to address those concerns. So APD is very, very excited to have Judge Garcia on board. I think that he will be a tremendous addition to the team and will really, really help the department get these policies where they need to be. So that's the other major, major thing that has happened in the last few weeks to address the concerns. and that will help us get where we need to be by June. The third thing that has happened in the last few weeks is that we've looked long-term. What do we need to do to not only make sure we have good policies by June for this initial deadline, but APD plans to review those again every 6 and then every 12 months to have an ongoing system of improvement for these policies. And so APD has decided to implement an Office of Policy Analysis, which will be a group of people that is very specifically charged with the task of overseeing and unifying the policy development process that up until now has had a lot of good components, but no one really overseeing it to make sure that all the components are coming together in the right way. So that Office of Policy Analysis will be responsible for taking feedback from what's happened over the last, once the policy's in place and time passes, take the last 6 to 12 months of experience with that policy. Feedback from the community, trends in civilian interactions between police and the community members, lawsuits, national trends, take all of that data and look at the policy and decide again, how does this need to improve to continue better serving the community? And that Office of Policy Analysis will be involved throughout the policy development process, and the parts we talked about in the council meeting will still be there with the SOP Review Committee and the Policies and Procedures Review Board, but now they'll be acting based on the specific guidance that this Office of Policy Analysis has come up with. If there's a national trend that says a policy should move in a particular direction, that will be clear as the direction as those groups review a policy. And they'll be able to be involved throughout, and they'll have representation on those groups. That way they can make sure that things are staying on track. Once it gets to the end of the process, they will look at it again to make sure that the end result looks the way that it was supposed to before it started through the process. And we have some handouts for you. If they're helpful, we did one that sort of shows a brief visual overview of this, and we also have a more detailed chart that we'd be glad to provide you if that's helpful to you. But I wanted to make sure I gave you a quick overview of those 3 big things. Realizing we will now really be drawing on national standards and best practices, bringing on a very, very respected former federal judge to help us write these policies, and then implementing a new group within the department that will long-term really be the stabilizing force in policy development, review, and constant improvement.